You will never be English. You are African Caribbean.
But why will I never be English?
Because you're African Caribbean. The whole world is polluting everybody the way it's going.
What's that phrase, polluting?
It is.
Why is it polluting, Jean?
Because you are what you are. You are where you are born.
But hang on, Jean. Here I am, having grown up in this country, have been born of this country, and actually, the truth is, it's a myth that there's one English ethnicity.
This is a day of national shame, and it has come about because of a hostile environment. If you lay down with dogs, you get fleas.
Standing here, it's hard not to feel just how old this is. Not the building, but the ideas it represents. For centuries, power in Britain lived here. Englishness has never just been cultural. It's been institutional. For most of that history, it's looked one way, sounded one way, and spoke one way. David Lammy sits inside this building now, but even from here, people still ask him whether he belongs. Stuart Hall writes that identity isn't something we're born with. It's something that's constantly being made. Watching Lammy, I realized that Britishness isn't something that's fixed. It's something that's constantly argued over, redefined, and sometimes even denied. As someone from outside this country, I've been watching this argument happen in real time. David Lammy was born in London to West Indian parents. He grew up in Tottenham, a black working-class kid who sang his way into a boarding school choir and eventually studied at Harvard Law. His life bridges worlds, from a council estate to the halls of power, embodying the very identity of difference the cultural theorist Stuart Hall wrote about. His story is tied to the Windrush generation, those who helped build Britain and then were told they didn't belong. Lammy's parents arrived in Britain as part of that generation, invited to rebuild the country after the war, only to discover that acceptance was conditional and belonging had to be argued for. For many families, including Lammy's, Britishness wasn't inherited. It was earned over and over again. Lammy represents Tottenham, not the version of Britain tourists see, but the version that people live. He interests me because he understands power not just as something you hold, but something that you have to push against. David Lammy didn't set out to be the race guy in British politics, but his sense of duty drove him to speak up. From the Grenfell Tower fire to Brexit, he has emerged as a moral voice.
I'm going to get emotional again. On this occasion, a fire step happens. Some people haven't got even phones. You know this, like I do. Good working people do what they're told, so they stay in their flats and they don't challenge authority and just get out the building. That's what happens.
Lammy represents communities shaped by work, migration, and resilience. Communities that built Britain and had to fight to be recognized by it. He speaks about race, class, and national identity not as abstract issues, but as real lived experience. David Lammy offers the public something rare in modern politics: moral clarity and honesty without any performance. What strikes me most isn't just what Lammy says, it's where he says it from. In his new role as Deputy Prime Minister, Lammy now sits at the center of British power, a position that once excluded people like him entirely. We talked in class about how power isn't always loud. Sometimes it's quiet. Sometimes it's just a door that opens more easily for some than others.
I was shocked, frankly, when I found out that whilst we'd made huge progress on black and ethnic minority students going to university, and indeed working class students from all backgrounds, they were concentrated at a small number of universities. And so I started to focus on fair access. And I guess I knew where the bodies were buried. And so I did think it was important to challenge Oxford and Cambridge about who gets to go on issues of race, of class and socioeconomic backgrounds. The figures are very, very worrying. And it's still the case today that there are colleges going 3, 4, 5 years without admitting a single black student.
This fearless advocacy has also made Lamy a controversial figure. To his admirers, he's a truth teller, unafraid to hold Britain accountable. To his critics, he is the one stroking division. Scroll through social media on any given day and you'll see anger directed at him. He notes that hardly a day passes without someone telling him to go back to a country he's from, when that country is England. David Lamy's response to being told that he wasn't British wasn't anger, it was tired, and that exhaustion says something. Because when you have to keep explaining your belonging, the burden isn't on you, it's on the story that the country keeps telling itself. Dorian Massey argues that places are shaped by power, by who gets to move freely and who is made to justify their presence. Lamy's career and current repetitive criticism shows what it looks like to claim space in institutions that were never designed for everyone to enter equally. David Lamy doesn't just represent progress, he represents tension. The tension between who Britain was built for and who Britain is becoming.
The dominant narrative has been a white, male, privileged narrative, the people that wrote the history books, the people that dictated the economy. That has been the narrative. We're in an age where after the arc of the 20th century, where at the beginning of that century, women, ethnic minorities, and certainly anyone who was LGBTQ, were subjugated. By the end of that century, of course, are identifying, self-actualizing, and that's a great, great thing.
He represents a Britain that is learning, sometimes reluctantly, to redefine itself beyond empire, whiteness, and inherited power. Maybe Britishness isn't about ancestry or accent. Maybe it's about who insists on staying, even when they're told that they don't belong.